Greetings friends, and welcome to this video exhibition where I'm going to be playing some Pokken Tournament DX. I decided to go with this game because it's a good pick up and play, it doesn't require any sort of commitment, and it's been a while since I've played it, and I'm really looking forward to diving back in. We're going to be doing an online battle. There's a group match currently going on. I'm just going to jump into that to keep things kind of simple. Here we are. Just going to do a few matches in this. It's a team battle, so I've decided to go with Braixen, Pikachu, and Suicune. Starting off with Braixen. And this is the tricky part, because with each of those characters, I generally use a different support set. But I've decided to go with Farfetch'd and Electrode. I feel like that's the most balanced and universally useful of the ones I use with these particular characters. And here we go. Or not. We're off to a fantastic start. Alright, that kind of helped break the ice a little bit. Sorry if I feel a little awkward. I'm not used to this, but that's kind of the whole point of this video. Is to just kind of ease myself into essentially talking to nobody. Alright, hopefully we'll have some better luck this time. Alright, there we go. After a CPU match, I found an opponent. And I was going to say, before I was interrupted by the previous disconnection, that I am really excited to be playing this game again. It's been several months, and it's definitely my favorite fighting game. A personal dream come true, really, because this is something I've been wanting to see ever since Generation 1. I remember back then when it was just Pokemon Red and Blue, and maybe Yellow as well. There were multiple types of games I always wanted, or genres rather, I always wanted to see Pokemon make games of, and one of those was a fighting game. The others being a strategy RPG and an action-adventure game. And we got those already. There's Pokepark for action-adventure, and Pokemon Conquest for a strategy RPG. So we got those, and this was the one that was missing for a long time. But we finally got it, and I was very pleased by the game. The best thing about it is just that it wasn't a disappointment. I was a bit nervous when it was announced that I was finally going to get a fighting game, and it just wasn't going to be as good as I was hoping it would be, but fortunately we didn't have that problem. Fortunately, this isn't too problematic of an opponent because I am very rusty right now. So it's good to have someone who's really not that difficult to deal with as a warm-up. What? Okay. Getting a little bit of input lag there. That should be fine. I switched to Braixen. Had a rough start against his spamming, but this should fix that. Anyway, in regards to a fighting game, back when Pokemon was new, it's something that I always thought about. I always thought it'd be really cool if they made a fighting game for like the N64. And I still remember having ideas for it. Like, for playing, obviously, you would use the analog stick for moving around. It would be a lot like this during the field phase where it's a 3D fighter. And you'd have A, B, and like Z and R for performing generic actions like dodging, jumping, stuff like that. And then you'd have the 4 C buttons to perform special attacks. Like Pokemon moves, like Flamethrower and all that. Wouldn't be anything too elaborate. Just something pretty simple and generic to get the job done. Man, talk about spamming. That shouldn't be a problem. See if I can make an epic comeback. Whoops. I hit right, but it didn't register. I wanted to switch to Electrode for this to help deal with these projectiles a bit better. Hopefully Suikun's abilities will be enough. Sorry if I can't think of much to say all the time. This isn't exactly a heavy talking sort of game. There we go. Alright, next up is Mewtwo. Trying to think of stuff to say, to talk about, but I'm not used to really talking and playing games at the same time. That's kind of the point of this. This video is just meant as an experiment, more or less, to kind of get things figured out and get used to this whole thing. I'm sure the whole concept will improve over time. That's what you get for spamming. How do you like being spammed back? Ah, Weavile. Weavile, I'm not good against Weavile. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Weavile and probably Gardevoir are the two characters I usually have the toughest time against in general. Especially if my opponent really knows what they're doing with them, but I don't feel like I have to worry too much about that with this person. Just gotta get through. Oops. That was embarrassing. Oh well, just gotta warm up. And it didn't take very long. Didn't even get to start that CPU match. And it's the same guy. Which means I have some revenge to get against him. Let's make this one a little bit less embarrassing. Now that I know what his whole deal is, I'm a little bit more warmed up than I was before. As I just start off horribly. Bit of a better start. The more I have trouble thinking of stuff to say, the more I feel like this wasn't the best choice for a game to play for something like this, kicking things off, but that's fine. I'm just trying to get used to it. And I wanted something that I could just pop in, play for a little while without any commitment to bring me back to it later on. There we go. Every time I see that attack, I swear that they based this character's entire personality off of Serena's breaks in from the anime. It's pretty much just that copy and paste. Much better. Still very rusty, but at least this time I'm not totally embarrassing myself. Except for the commentary. Again, just can't think of anything to say. I'm trying to play the game. And this is a game that requires focus. Jump, 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 jump. Let's go Pikachu. Speed versus speed. Except Pikachu's not a speed character. Which just is odd to me. Pikachu's like greatest strength in the anime has always been speed, so I just find it strange that that's not what they went with for the character. That was a mistake. Speaking of Pikachu in the anime, any thoughts on them replace, because recently they updated Pikachu's moveset and replaced Electro Ball with Electro Web. And while we're here, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Because I think it was a great choice. Electro Ball to me always felt like a waste of one of Pikachu's moves, because it was just so... It didn't add anything. Especially when they got rid of Volt Tackle, which was not only Pikachu's signature move, but also a really solid trump card for it to have in situations where it needed that. And then they replaced it with Electro Ball, which I just thought was stupid, because it was, at least as far as the anime seemed to be concerned, it was just too similar to Thunderbolt. So then when they replaced it recently with Electro Web, I thought it was great, because they gave Pikachu a bit more of a versatile moveset. Not only giving more strategic options, but also just making it capable of more interesting battles. So I'm curious what anybody else thinks of that. And on the topic of discussing things, anybody who's played this game, are there any particular Pokemon you wished were in it but weren't? Because I can think of a couple. The main one that always comes to mind for me was Hariyama. I think Hariyama would have been a really cool choice for this game. I would imagine it being very slow, but resistant to flinching and capable of dealing a lot of damage. So you'd have a character that could take hits really well, had a lot of health, but it's very slow and difficult to land hits with. But when you do, it's devastating. But I feel like it would be kind of difficult to differentiate it enough from a champ, aside from giving it super armor. So it might not have been a particularly necessary character, but I still think it would have been a nice way to give Hariyama some representation, especially since I feel like it's one of the more forgotten about fighting types, at least from what I've personally experienced. So are there any characters that you would have liked to see in the game, or are there any characters that you are happy to see in the game, and were either particularly pleased with or disappointed with, like maybe a favorite Pokemon that is in the game but you weren't able to use because it just didn't work out very well with your play style or whatever? Just any thoughts if you want to share them about the game, that would be interesting to hear. I'm just steamrolling this guy and barely even thinking about it. Maybe that's the ticket. Just keep talking, not concentrate so much on the game, and just let things happen. At least with opponents that are rank E. It would be a little more interesting to fight an opponent that's a bit more my level, but at the same time, I'm currently not at my level because I'm so rusty, so that probably wouldn't be a very good demonstration of what I could actually do under normal circumstances. Take him out. And another match down. I have no idea how long this has been going, especially with the interruptions with CPU matches, but I think I'm just going to call it after one more match. This was a good experiment. It's kind of the whole point. Let's mix it up. I'll start with Suicune this time. Hydro. Never mind. There we go. Finally found one after almost a complete CPU match. Oh no, it's Ash. I'm so worried. This is gonna go terribly because Ash is so good. Seriously though, Ash gets a worse rap than he deserves. He's a great trainer in the show. It's just the writing really holds him back, keeping him from being as good as he should be by this point. And I feel like people oftentimes treat that as him being terrible, when really he's not terrible at all. He just can't beat the writing. The writing has too much control over how much he's able to progress. And then when he does progress, they hold him back. Anyway, while I was facing those computer opponents, I was reminded of a thought I had the other day while trying to get the opportunity to do this recording of imagining a game like this, just a Pokemon fighting game type thing, but instead voice controlled. I was thinking that would be kind of interesting. Make it more like... I got the idea because I was thinking that one of the things I would like more about this game is if you're actually the Pokemon instead of being represented as a trainer. That's like one of the things that I wish I could change about the game. I just think it would be a little more interesting that way and unique. And that got me thinking about the idea of something like this, but voice controlled. Where you just... Because if you're going to be the trainer, maybe make it more immersive, like you're actually calling out your commands and your Pokemon responds, like you tell it to use a move, like Hydro Pump. Hydro! never mind. Or Thunderbolt, and then it responds. Tell it to dodge, and it takes evasive actions. And have it autonomously controlled when you're not telling it to do things, or have it take particular types of actions based on certain sorts of commands. It probably wouldn't work very well, but it would be an interesting thing to kind of be able to experiment with, if nothing else. Sort of a curiosity. Not the best idea, but just a little something I was thinking about the other day. That was a mistake. That was one of those mistakes where right as I jumped up, I knew I did a terrible thing that I shouldn't have done. But you can't do things perfectly all the time. That's not the button I pressed. I swear I pressed X. Whatever. Pikachu. Alright, tied 1-1. So far, this could go either way. It's great range for a throw. That gets people so often. Start with the Thunder Shocks to convince them to jump. They always block it. But then I feel like about 60% of the time after shooting that off once, the person will jump. And then you hit them with Electro Ball. At least with some of the opponents I face. I'm sure if you're facing people who are like pros at the game, you wouldn't be able to get them with something that simple, but... Well, I guess that's why whenever I end up against somebody who's A or S rank in ranked matches, I usually get my ass kicked. See, now Ash would never use a Mewtwo, because it's a legendary. And he would never think to catch such a thing. I was in a YouTube comments string recently, and they're talking about that sort of thing. Like, the fact that Ash has seen so many legendary Pokemon and not caught any of them. And one of the points I commented on that saying that a lot of the times when Ash catches Pokemon, it's because they want to go with him. He very rarely catches something just to catch it. Most of his Pokemon join him because they want to go with him. He'll do something in the episode to help them out or something of the sort, and then they'll join up with him at the end. Of their own accord. No Pokeball, no nothing. The Pokeball just ends up being a formality. And the reason I was bringing that up is because they were talking, the people in the comments were talking about how Ash has encountered so many legendary Pokemon and not caught any. And yeah, part of that would come down to legendaries usually being in the movies, and they don't want to have such important events happen in a movie that would change things in the show. But I was making the point that another part of that anyway would be that there's never been a legendary that has been like that has just approached Ash and wanted to go with him. To the point where it's like, okay, let's travel together. That's never really happened with any legendaries. That was... And thus, the legendary Mewtwo was taken out with a kick to the ankle. And the opponent was a dick. What a perfect way to end this off. Anyway, that's that, I guess. Let me know how terrible this was. I don't expect this to be good, because I'm sounding like a broken record, but this was just an experiment to kind of get my feet wet, figure things out, practice with ideas, get used to talking to a microphone instead of a person, and not having anybody on the other side of it. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully, with this whole thing feeling a little less awkward, so I can do better. See you next time.